According to applicable SBA Standards of Operating Procedures, SOPs, the general question in determining what constitutes an adequate compromise amount is whether the compromise amount bears a reasonable relationship to the amount that could be recovered and applied to the SBA loan balance in a reasonable amount of time through enforced collection. To answer this question, the following factors should be taken into consideration. A. Exemptions available under state and federal law. B. Recoverable value of obligor's non-exempt assets. C. Litigative risks, i.e., a real doubt concerning the ability to prove in court that the full amount is due. D. The possibility that assets have been or will be concealed or fraudulently transferred. E. The necessary, reasonable, and customary administrative and litigation expenses that would be incurred through enforced collection. F. The time it would take to enforce collection. G. Obligor's income. H. Whether the obligor fully and accurately disclosed assets, income, liabilities, and expenses. And I. Whether the obligor's cooperation during the liquidation process increased the overall recovery on the loan. These factors are critical to an obligor's or guarantor's offering compromise case before the SBA, and counsel representing the SBA debtor should thoroughly examine and argue these mitigating factors as part of the client's request for administrative review. Counsel should review applicable federal and/or state bankruptcy exemptions, homestead exemptions, anti-deficiency statutes, contract defenses, federal regulatory violations, and/or statute of limitations issues. And if any of these factors are present, it is imperative that counsel argue these factors as viable litigative risks to the SBA in a good faith attempt to persuade the government agency to accept an offer and compromise amount. A thorough analysis and presentation of these factors would also trigger a discussion of the time and expense the government would incur in its attempt to pursue enforced collection. Finally, when presenting an offer and compromise to the SBA on behalf of an SBA debtor, it is equally important to thoroughly review the debtor's financial profile and weigh the client's income, expenses, assets, and liabilities against the IRS's financial collection standards, which can be found on the IRS website page located at www.irs.gov/individual/collection financial standards. These federal government regulations, rules, and policies provide allowable living expenses for 1. Food and clothing, 2. Out-of-pocket healthcare expenses, 3. Housing and utilities, and 4. Transportation. For all alleged federal debts, tax and non-tax, the federal government is required to assess an obligor's expenses and compares them against these IRS's financial collection standards to help determine if the compromise figure offered is an adequate amount. Clearly, the objective is to demonstrate to the government, based on applicable federal rules, regulations, and policies, that the compromise amount offered, when viewed against these pertinent factors and standards, bears a reasonable relationship to the amount that could be recovered.